However, if we've got people that you're backed up on your karmic debt, you're into it pretty heavy and you're not paying into it at all, you're going to get reported to the ultimate credit agency, who's going to start working with you about your bankruptcy or about your repayment plan, or we're going to, have to spend 10 years chasing you down because you're avoiding us. There's no avoidance time anymore. There just isn't. And many people don't believe that that's true. They want to, la, 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 la. Yeah, okay. Well, look around, see some of our biggest figures in politics or in celebrity Hollywood, whatever, or sports, things like that. Look at just the general news of the violence uptick. It's not just an uptick, it's a sharp rise, and the age is going down of the most shocking displays of violence and not being able to handle the energies and the shifts in consciousness, that you have people in that chasm when it's splitting off, and we choose to just continue to keep dirty and keep low vibing. And I refuse to be self-reflective. I refuse to take any accountability. I don't have any responsibility in this. It's that person's fault. And you can also go the other way. If there's people jumping that way, you can't really do a whole lot about it. There's not much that can be done other than to, make videos like this one and say that's what's happening. It can explain you loosely on why it's happening. However, it isn't going to explain anything about, you personally, what your job to do with that is. You have to decide for yourself, as do I. I personally, I go MCI, paramedic with it. That's a multi-casualty incident. There's a lot of people in pain, and somebody that's acting as a black tag with, no, you're a black tag. We don't, we're not allowed. I'm not allowed to put resources on that because that has a very low rate of survival. And I don't mean physical survival. I mean just, your energy is that low that you're still grabbing for really low vibe stuff as your sustenance, and you're going to continue to try to manipulate, lie, control, and be really, really just evilly moving, in very evil intention. Then there's not anything I can do except pour a whole lot of light into a black hole that won't ever make it out again. And it won't change the structure or the status of the black hole. And it's not going to make the black hole any better. It's just going to mean that my light is absorbed in there and gone. And, there's only so much earth time I can really put into this earth, as in my earth body. I'm only going to plug into this earth for however many years that I'm here, or days, or whatever it is. And if I spend all my time trying to rescue people that really, there's others over there that they don't need to be rescued. They just need some assistance with, can you give me some, breath of courage? Can you show me the right way to be able to get out of this matrix, get out of this hole, this whatever? And unlike, a black hole where nothing gets out of it, we can get out of the matrix. We have to want to. We have to identify that we're in a matrix, and we have to identify our own matrix behavior, which that can be, challenging. It can be embarrassing. It can be all kinds of full of shame. You got people that are, you're wanting to try to heal in a crack house. It's not going to happen. More than likely, statistically speaking, it just doesn't work well. So, first thing is to identify that, am I actually low vibing, and then go from there. And we're all low vibing at some point. It's just how low vibing you are. If somebody's mostly up here, their low vibe is still going to be on the very top side of low vibe. And if we're, down here, then, our lowest low vibe, or even our highest low vibe, is still going to be some pretty ranky and janky and kind of stuff where, we're really going to want to power down when we're frightened. And now there's a lot of people frightened. There's spiritual warfare going on all over the place, and people that are trying to manipulate that or send, jinns and voodoo, hoodoo magic and stuff. Like, what are you doing? Are you not understanding that you're causing direct harm to your own self? Because people that are protected, chosen ones, light workers, star seeds. I always get that mixed up because they are light seeds, star seeds, energy healers, energy workers, people that identify, empaths, people that are here doing that kind of work. Chosen one, actually, while I'm on it, chosen as in I chose myself to be in a higher vibration. I believe that everybody can get to a higher vibration and really needs to. However, I do believe there are some people that are just wired a little bit differently to have that happen a little more easily. Anyone can be working in a high vibration. But if we're really trying to throw some hateful stuff, whether we're, calling it magic or not, our mouth is full of magic when we say stuff and we continue to really manifest in that low vibe. Manifesting in a low vibe is very easy. Manifesting in fear is very easy. You get a lot of very much what you see, which is the breakdown of all of it. If no longer Pisces, bye, we're here. But excuse me, if we're really throwing that stuff or thinking we're throwing it at people that are surrounded with, you're throwing stuff in your frequency, it's not going to make it to a higher frequency that's nowhere near that. If I'm not living in that same consciousness, how do you expect that to actually reach me or cause me harm, cause me danger, or have me slow down in any way whatsoever, other than to make a video for other people who might be able to understand that I think there might be there's a lot of really ugly stuff going on. We can actually see it. It's not just making stuff up. And you might feel that breeze of something weird seems like it's around. It probably is. Just, they're not going to affect us, Slider, you stink. Just notice that Slider stinks and then keep on moving. They have no power over us unless they have power over us, and that's how they keep that low vibe going, is let me suck in to the black hole. Well, now's the time that, okay, your fear, we can choose with our fear to go up or go down. And if we choose to continue to go down, you're just going to see a faster breakdown. And apparently there's quite a number of very high profile people that are willing to show us how much fear they are exhibiting by looking like they're not afraid and doing all these, wild things that are very dramatic, and they can cause us to have a knee-jerk reaction. Especially if we're feeling that, with intimate, sources around us, family, friends, people we work with or whatever that, are just secret haters, and maybe not so secret, but they're, really not really supportive of us. It can leave us in a confused spot. However, just keep in mind that the news where we see all the high profile stuff, just take that into consideration, that whatever you see there's at least, a million other people that you don't see right behind all that, not because they support it necessarily, but because they're, if you're seeing that on high profile stuff, 25 years ago, we didn't see this on the news. We just did not, and now there's breakdown, shakedown, weather anomalies, energetic anomalies. We're finding stuff in quantum study with astrophysics and stuff of, wow, what's that? We're seeing that, meltdown of the matrix is in play. And people that are getting their return on how they invested in that, to keep the matrix going, are suffering hard. And excuse me, though it's not particularly, anyone's favorite topic, generally speaking, to talk about forgiveness, it does play into it that even the darkest entities on the planet, they still came with the coding of being, God's seed. They still came with the same coding that I did in terms of, having the right to find their path and to become the prodigal son that, just came home. And I'm sorry, Dad. It does not mean, though, that the prodigal son, when he got done, spending all the money and having a great time and, just having fun on the back of, whomever, when he changed his mind and decided to go back home, it doesn't mean that he didn't have to pay. We don't hear that whole story, and as far as I know, in my opinion anyway, I'm sure that some people argue very heavily, I know they do, that the source from which that story comes is an historical reference book, and I look at it as a sacred book and look to, nothing of historical value unless it can be absolutely proven to me. So unless I could meet the prodigal son and the whole situation, then, I'm going to take it as a metaphorical understanding. So if the prodigal son, we don't have the whole backstory that when he made his way home, perhaps he was in, California and needed to get to, I don't know, Virginia to get home. It probably would be that if he had been blazing all the way from Virginia to California and had picked up speeding tickets and, he had warrants in 9 different states and things like that, that if he was going to be righteous and moving through honestly, he would move through those states and he'd pay his time there and okay, I was in, wherever, I don't know, Montana, and I've got a warrant there, then I'm going to go turn myself in and sit my time there. And it may actually take him time to get back, even though he's changed his mind. He no longer wants to be, the outcast or the, I'm out here just flipping my dad off and, my brother and everybody else. It may take him time, it's going to, if he's going to be righteous, stand up and take responsibility for all that, karmic installation he was putting in, and go pay those warrants. It might take him a year to actually travel back, or 2 years or 5 years or something. we don't talk about that, and we don't have a hard and fast on the story to begin with. But if we look at it metaphorically and then dig deeper as to how can I apply that to my life, that's how it would look to me, is that we're going to have to pay the debt. The prodigal son still has to pay the debt for whatever he did. I don't mean the wealth of his dad, I mean the karmic debt of all the damage he caused has to be paid back, and you will get home. And if he phoned his dad, at the beginning and said, dude, I'm really sorry, I really want to come home, the dad can be excited and go, yeah, my son's coming home. But we don't know, maybe in the Bible it says it took 10 years for, prodigal Pete to get back home, because he had to pay his way back with, getting his butt kicked a little bit with, karma. And, there's great allowance and forgiveness from his dad, the dad, God, divinity, spirit, source, however we want to look at it, the higher authority. There's great forgiveness in that the God source is purely loving. There isn't a need to be forgiven. However, we're here on earth and we don't operate in that purely loving frequency. The purely loving frequency does, and yet we have to balance the books here. Because we're not able to sustain that purely loving energy that way. Higher source and God source can, because that's what God source is. However, as a human, we're going to have to balance and reckon those books, and it might take a minute, so we can be, knowing that we're very deeply loved and we're forgiven for our sins, that where we've been out of balance, that we can be deeply loved in that. And the father could be coaching, the son as he's going and saying, it's okay, you'll make it. I'm so proud of you that you've come, and, you'll be able to survive the 16 years in prison you have to spend, to pay back the debt there. I'll be here when you get home. Click, and if we kind of understand it in those terms, then it takes away all of the raunchy, ghetto, weird stuff that people like to do with one another about judging, what our indiscretions have been. We're very quick to judge other people's indiscretions and don't really want to talk about our own. And then when we see and identify somebody that has a whole boatload of indiscretions, or they get caught for something that we just think is reprehensible, then we're quick to jump on the bandwagon, get a dog pile going, and, do some witch hunt, and, lynching begins on every level. And really, it doesn't help a person that's been astray. The prodigal son doesn't need to have his nose rubbed in dirt the whole way back home. That's not what would be the point. As long as he's paying his debt, as long as he's dealing with his karma, and, he doesn't get to whine about it and say, this isn't fair. Or he does get to do it. He just probably wouldn't get his father on the phone for very long. Oh, you're complaining about what you built. I'm going to have to leave you alone now to, figure that out, and, get a little more emotionally grown up and mature and spiritually develop that, to understand that anything we've created, if we really want to be honest about healing and moving forward and not being, out in the in left field, spending our father's money and, doing things that are really unkind, then we really have to be honest with ourselves that, okay, even though it hurts and, I don't really like it, it's not fun, it's not cool, I still have to pay my dues, take my licks, and just take what's mine to take. I don't have to love it necessarily every second of the day, but it would serve me very well to understand that is what I deserve. And I get very bothered with people that want to tell others what they deserve. Karma is like gravity. Gravity will get you what you deserve. If you believe you can fly and you jump out of a tree, you'll get what you deserve. That's how karma is there's no personal investment from karma side any more than there would be gravity side. It's people that put the spin on that. And so it's a very, very terrible game to get into, because then we get, voodoo, hoodoo magic and all kinds of mouth action. And, even if it's not black magic oriented, and people know nothing about spirituality, or they're not going in that direction, if our mouth is going and our hands are going and our intention is to do, some really evil stuff, mean stuff, unkind, whatever it is, to manipulate and control, we're still subject to the same law. How you deal with gravity is how you deal with gravity, and it's not personal same as karma, that it's not personal. How you deal with your karma is how you deal with it. The way that you work gravity is that you don't assume that by jumping out of a tree and you just assume that I can fly because I have arms that look like they might do a similar job as a bird, that you'll fly. You mitigate that by doing the things that make you aerodynamically sound to be able to fly. And that's how, karma and gravity work for us. And we can get out of, if we spent more time looking for ways to mitigate what is going to keep us from flying, and not so much in laughing, scoffing at, or manipulating other people that aren't flying, or they're trying their way and it's not working. If we get out of all of that really just negative, horrible, crappy behavior, then we won't have to worry about how any of it looks or get too spiritual or too deep about it. It's that we get real involved in what should this person go through, and what that person should have to do this, and get very much into the judgment phase. And none of us is part of the Justice League. None of us is Avengers that get to decide, what the fate of another person is. We've taken that job on in many areas, so much so that now we believe, we can just take human life and push it in any direction we want to, because we've excluded them somehow, and that it's okay to do that because... no, gravity doesn't do that. Gravity doesn't say that, we let some humans fly because of, whatever, unless they're in an aerodynamically sound machine of some kind, or they're wearing, something that's aerodynamically complementary to, flying, then there isn't any exclusion. It's not like, it's not personal. And when humans get involved, we make it super personal, and it's just not okay. So even though, there's a lot of people that have chosen badly, for those people now that, they're coming home, it's really best to have as much forgiveness in our hearts and compassion as possible without getting too involved in it, because as compassionate as I need to be with the, most evil players in my life ever, whoever they are, whatever they are, I can be quite compassionate and very understanding of where you went left. Wow, that was really, sad that you went there. However, I can't get involved with that, because that's going to pull me into trying to repay debt that isn't mine. That would be like assuming somebody else's credit reporting agency or their credit agency helping them pay that debt off, and I'm not really in a position to do that financially. It's the same with our spirit. If we're spiritually trying to help someone else pay their debt by easing them through what is the truth, which is, if you were a criminal and you had to pay that back, then go do that. And then when you get out of that situation, perhaps, if you're not still engaged in criminal behavior, we can talk about how we'll go forward. And I have great compassion for you, and I got to go now because you're complaining about, being in jail for doing unlawful things, and, you're not quite understanding why you're there yet. So, and it's not the easiest task. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying it is to have that kind of compassion. However, the truth is, if we really were honest about it, we would want that kind of compassion and stop short of saying, well, I would never do that. Okay, we've all had indiscretions somewhere. And whatever they are, our worst behavior on the planet, none of us can really say that we haven't had something that we were slightly, I wouldn't want the general public to know about that. And think about that, being broadcast at 10 times the potency, or 1,000 times the potency, broadcast to the entire world. We wouldn't want to have to, go there. And if we can really leave the ego out of that, well, I would never do that. Well, pretend that you did. And then, take whatever your worst thing is that you've ever done. And, imagine putting 10,000 times the strength on that, and then have to face, whatever it is. Then as long as we're learning our lessons, then we can really, want and expect from divinity to have that compassion. And the more humans are able to adopt that position, the faster they'll get out of that prodigal son all the way back home journey of getting their butt kicked. However, there's a minimum standard of you've got to pay back, and I don't know what those numbers are, and neither does anybody else. That's between each individual and their cosmic accountant to help them figure it out. and to help them pay it down, and to really help them understand how I'm going to make it back home, and then really not repay dad for the rest of our lives. That's, human stuff, because God, divinity, doesn't ask us to pay for the rest of our lives. It is that asked of us that we obey the laws of gravity, obey the laws of karma, and go along with that. And, where it's been out of balance, where we've been, amiss in that, just understand that there needs to be some balancing. It might be bumpy, and it might be really bumpy, jumpy, and not feeling so cool. However, it still needs to be done, and it's still yours to take up, when it's yours. It's mine when it's mine, and I don't get to tell you what yours is. I only get to say that, oh, this is out of balance for me personally, and I don't care to collect any more debt on this. I see the light, and I'm out of here, so that I can keep my, karmic debt to a minimum. Doesn't make me better. And you worse. That's where it would turn into that, oh, that's an immediate imbalance, Kate, don't do that. And because, humans get to be fairly ego-driven, many humans, most humans, we're based in our ego, a lot of us, and that's why we're going to a different understanding, that we're getting out of that ego identification of, I am this, I am the title of, I have this makes me, whatever. And as we're making those transitions, the kindest we can be with ourselves is, really most important, which will help us hook up with, pure loving frequency. It'll help us identify those out here that really aren't there. And I really don't want to be involved in that, and still have great compassion for it. Great compassion, and no action to do anything with people that are still black tagging. Then you're going to need to do that until you are extinct, or until you see the light that you're refusing to see. It's very difficult to pour a lot of resource into that and see any real effectual change. That's why we're having such dramatic change now. So I think almost 33 minutes is quite enough. Thank you very much for your time. I do hope that you're well, and enjoy whatever part of the day you're in, and remember, get within your skin, because you're divine. It's absolutely fine. Take care, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye, friends.